Hello everyone, my name is Chidong Yang, and this is our team's project, Prepayment vs Open Account. Uh, my group member is Xiang Yi, Ren Yuan, and me. Next, I will introduce our group project to you. For prepayment, prepayment is the amount paid in advance to the supplier in accordance with the contract by the enterprise for purchasing goods and accepting labor service. Other receivables are another important part of enterprise receivables. Explain is prepayment is the amount of the money paid in advance to the supplier according to the contract, mainly as payment for goods in advance. So next is open account. Define. Open account is short for open account. In an open account trade arrangement, the goods are shipped to a buyer without gratuity of payment. QT often the buyer does not pay on the agreed time, unless the buyer's ingratitude is unquestionable. Its trade arrangement is risky to the seller. Explain. After the goods are exported, the export will send the shipping documents directly to the importer to pick up the goods. After the agreed payment, paired express, the exporter will collect the money of the importer.
Okay, we have defined them clear from the previous presentation. Now, let me introduce the similarities and the differences between prepayment and open account. They all belong to the method of payment in international trade, and I analyze their differences from three aspects. First, we talk about the time of payment. Let's look at the prepayment, which requires payment before manufacturing and transportation. In our daily life, when we buy something on Lazada, for example, we require payment before shipment. If you need to customize something, it has to be paid for before it's made. And for open account, it from invoice date or delivery date as agreed between buyer and seller. The net date is 30, 16, and 19 days. For the second is goods available to buyer. The prepayment need pay first and use later. The open account needs use first and pay later. There is difference between these two. The third point is that when we talk about risk, I divide risk into seller and buyers. Let's start with the seller. In the prepayment, the seller will assume the situation that the product has been produced but not paid, like the customized product we mentioned before. It will be lost a lot. And for open account, the risk of the seller is much greater than that of the prepayment because the seller gave the product in advance but did not receive the money. Maybe the buyer defaults on payment obligation, and maybe delays in availability of foreign exchange and transferring of funds from buyer's countries occur, and maybe the payment is blocked due to political events in buyer's country. There are similarities between prepayment and open account. The other risks belong to the buyer. In either case, the buyer has to consider the seller doesn't ship per the order, or the seller doesn't ship when requested. The other similarities is they both have to take risks, and trust need to be built on both sides, and also both require a contract or agreement. So that's all my part about comparing the similarities and the differences between prepayment and open account.
My part is in which scenario best to use each method. A prepayment is made when a selling company receives payment from a buyer before the seller has shipped goods or provide service to the buyer. Prepayment can happen under three circumstances. A buyer wants preferred treatment for an order. The seller refuses to extend credit to a buyer, and the buyer is on the cash basis of accounting and wants to record an expenses early by paying early. Next, open account. There are four situations where we need to open account. The seller absolutely believes that the buyer will accept the shipment and pay at the agreed time. The seller is confident that the importing country will not implement regulations that delay or prevent payment transfer. The seller has sufficient liquidity or can use external financing to extend the deferred payment terms and used more often in international transactions to avoid high bank charges.